only are doing horribly running the football, but they're also just not teaching it to their players. And it could also do with the combination of less practices through the union and that sort of stuff. But, I mean, if you want to talk about Matt Forte, I think it's the linebackers filling the gaps properly in the running lanes. You could sit there and say they're not properly blocking them.
I'm blaming Michael Ola.
There you go.
He's my scapegoat.
There you go. That's brilliant.
He has instantly jumped to my nemesis status on that team.
Well, it can't be Conti because he's hurt again.
No, he got hurt, so he's exonerated for this moment. But he has what's the word I'm looking for? He has ascended the mountain of my hatred. It used to be Jamarcus Webb. Now it's Michael Ola.
Oh,
Michael Ola, welcome to the club. You have.
Now, do you feel that your criticism is it's proper, it's well placed, or do you feel they're just not doing what they need to be doing? Like you're giving them no break, in other words.
Right, exactly. The man goes backward more than a figure skater. Okay, yeah. That's all I'm going to say on that.
There you go.
All right, so the next game that kind of stood out was San Francisco, Arizona. You and I picked the Niners, and the Cardinals stood tall at home.
Oh, wow. That game was incredible. I got to watch a good bit of that, and that was an incredible game. You know what was impressive is there were two quarterbacks that stood out, Austin Davis and Drew Stanton this weekend.
Yeah, the two backups.
The two backups, and they looked like they were ready to lead their respective football teams from now until Week 16. We'll be talking about the Cardinals and potentially the Rams in 12 weeks. I mean, that's how they played this weekend.
So Brian Quick is doing his best to stay relevant.
Isn't he good? I'm the guy that pointed him out to you, and I came out and said, Brian Quick, don't sleep on this guy. Get him with a late draft pick.
You did. I will give you that.
I did.
And Austin Davis. If you're asking Austin Davis to throw the ball 42 times, I mean, he completed over 71% of his passes, 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, but you have no business asking Davis to throw 42 times, even if it is the Dallas Cowboys.
And I agree, but he did, and he was successful.
Yep.
I mean, you could sit there and say, he had 2 interceptions, but he threw for 327 yards, and would you say 3 touchdowns? That's sick. That's what you do your 3rd, 4th year as a quarterback.
Yep.
And that's a top drafted. He's a prodigy. We're all expecting him to be great, sort of like Andrew Luck. That's what we expect Andrew Luck to be doing.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, and the Rams would be even a better team if they had, instead of having sort of 4 or 5 wide receivers with 3 of them sort of average receivers, 2 of them better than average, they would be a better team if they had one go-to guy. One big 6'2", 6'3". In other words, one of the receivers from the Bears that he could throw to constantly, or Des Bryant, or Alshon Jeffrey, or AJ Green. Imagine what kind of a team they would be having sort of that 1-2 punch between Zach Stacy and a great wide receiver that would get them 150 yards receiving and 1 to 2 touchdowns, if not every game, every other game.
Yep. Nope. You bring up a very valid point.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was sitting down and already starting to work on the waiver wire report for this week, which will be out tomorrow morning on the fantasygreek.com. And you have to address, when you do these reports, people are first looking, well, who can I add to my team? And then you're sort of looking, well, aren't there performances I should sort of talk about? Because, people are going to want to know, where do you stand on this? And you look at a player like Drew Stanton and Austin Davis, and you say, well, they're backups. And I'm not going to tell you they're must-adds, because even though they had a great weekend, tomorrow they could flop flat on their faces, or they could be the real deal. Maybe it's their time. Maybe this is when everything is clicked, and it's the opportunity. So thankfully, the Cardinals, they're on a bye this week, so you don't have to really think of Drew Stanton unless you have a bye week problem in Week 5. then you might have to. And then we've got Austin Davis, who I'm not sure if they're on a bye this week or next, but he's a viable player that if you had a big roster, let's say you drafted one of the top quarterbacks and you just decided I'm going to pass on a backup quarterback and just sort of play the waiver wire. Now you're looking at the waiver wire and it's awfully thin, and you're not sure what to do. You may say, well, I'll get this young guy just in case, and just throw him on my bench.
No, those are the speculative picks that you end up making sometimes. That they can either make your fantasy season, or you end up doing that week after week, failure after failure, and you never stop. But if you never use them, because I know what you mean. Like there's times where I'll have a spot on my team where I'm constantly sort of taking somebody off the waiver wire, putting them in there. They do nothing. Okay, drop them. Get the next guy that seems like he could be a good. But if it's a spot that's just, it doesn't matter. You're not hurting yourself. Don't freak out about it. Right.
Because there are many players that they want to have the best players all over their roster, and then they're put in the position of sort of, oh, do I pick him to start him or start him or start him? And I'm not saying that's a good position to be in, but if you have the two of the best running backs, and you don't have the next best running back, don't freak out. You've got two of the best ones. What are you worried about? You're going to play them week in, week out.
Unless you're like me and you over-tinker.
Yeah, that could happen.
I'm guilty. I am guilty.
We're all guilty of that. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, those of us that, do this for a while. Oh, wait.
What?
Alshon Jeffrey just blew it up again. What do you get? It looks like he's got 14 more yards. Or maybe he didn't blow it up. I'm sorry.
I'm watching.
Or maybe it was Matt Forte had a nice run or reception.
I'm watching on the game cast. I still have it at 4th and 8. Do they go for it on 4th down?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the team where I have them both on, and somehow suddenly I have 6 more points.
Oh. Yeah, I know. Forte was getting some chunks. Forte was eating on this drive.
Oh, that's good. Isn't that weird? It's so hard to look at football. Like in the old days, you could look at a running back and he gets chunks, and you're just counting. You're like, okay, 8 yards, 48 yards, 5 yards, 53. Oh, big run, 14 yards, Now it just doesn't seem like it's enough, or it's...
Yeah, well, Forte's run the ball 13 times for 33 yards, but there was a point where he had 5 carries for no yards.
Yeah.
And that was because he worked hard to get out of the hole. He was in negative for a little bit there.
Yeah. Well, and he's a player that should be getting more passes, but they're obviously not running the screen against this team. If they have, it probably wasn't effective, because I haven't seen them throw him the football too much this game. And they clearly have, just not as much as they could.
Right.
Anyway.
So the other game we were wrong about was we all picked the Carolina Panthers to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
And that game was just a dog.
Oh, my God.
It was just, I don't even know what I want to say about it. I really...
It seems to me it wasn't Cam Newton in the offense that disappointed him. It was their defense. And surprisingly, it was their rush defense that just fell apart. And the Steelers they're done with one running back, they put in the next. And they keep rotating. And for a while there, they had Blount in, and he just, in I think slightly lesser carries than Le'Veon Bell actually ended up outproducing him, I believe. And, which is sort of a surprise, but that's okay. I mean, this is a situation where to see that against such a great defense that, at least in the beginning of the game, kept him in, the offense was doing okay, then it just all fell apart.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop him. The Steelers needed this. They needed that win.
Well, what's the word I'm looking for? They found the magic key to their running game and opened the gates between Blount and Le'Veon Bell. I mean, they had a good first 2 quarters in week 1 against Cleveland, and then they played 6 quarters of completely uninspiring football. And there was no reason to think that they could go into Carolina and win that game, much less put up 37 points on that defense. And then they went and did it. And you know what's going to happen now. You're going to expect it again, and they're not going to be able to do it.
I'm surprised people aren't talking about Kelvin Benjamin a little bit more today. I want to say he had well over 100 yards receiving, and he's a rookie. To see that and not to sort of honor that in week 3 of his rookie season sort of blows my mind.
Yep, I had him on my on the team in the league that he had 115 yards and 1 receiving touchdown.
That's great.
He didn't help me though because I got smoked like a salmon in your league.
But now we're talking about here's a rookie that in week 4 you almost have to consider starting him. Whether you start him, that's a different story. But I mean, he's a consideration as opposed to let's see if he can do that again, and I don't know.
Yep.
So, what else? He's an outstanding player. He's a great draft pick. I'd love to see some of the other wide receivers and receivers step up, even though Greg Olsen obviously had a decent game. That touchdown certainly made it a decent game for him. But they'll get another draft pick at some point, and I'm sure they'll draft another young guy, hopefully as talented as Kelvin Benjamin.
And Robbie Gould has kicked a 45-yard field goal, put the Bears up 27-19 with 3:10 left in the fourth quarter. So the Jets will need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to force overtime. And for those of you that care, which are none of you, the game that I'm counting on Jay Cutler, I am losing 86.16 to 86.10.
Wow.
I am going to be floored if I lose this game because of that fumble.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh. Steve will rake me over the coals next week. You realize that, right?
I do realize it, but it won't be that bad.
It'll be painful, absolutely painful.
He isn't the best color. What's your expression?
He's not the best color man in the industry for nothing, folks.
There you go. Just throw that out there every time he says something.
In-depth analysis, like, yep. All right.
Sure was.
That was the Week 3 in review. Let's take a one quick break. We'll be back in about 4 minutes, and we'll go through our picks for next week. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans Live. It's the NFL Hour on Late Night Sports Radio.
Down the street